And thanks again for joining us here. We are on the Gill Athletics Connections podcast. As you are listening to this, about 2 weeks ago, I'm just so blessed the reception that the podcast has had. We actually passed 50,000 downloads and listens. I'm just blown away. When we started this back in January of 2020, nowhere in my purview could I have seen 50,000 people to hopefully have been blessed and encouraged and uplifted by this podcast, where we encourage and uplift and honor coaches from around the world. And we're going to do it all over again today. I'm super excited. Speaking of being uplifted and honored and just helped with the podcast, you're going to have a good one with today's podcast. Here we are today with Mr. Raffael Craig from Louisiana Tech University. Raffael, how are you, sir?
Hi, I'm good, Mike.
I probably butchered that name. I always want to say Law Tech, but that's not the formal nickname, right? It's Louisiana Tech University, or what is it?
Yeah,
Okay.
It's Louisiana Tech University.
I went to a very small school in Illinois called Illinois Institute of Technology. So it was Illinois Tech, not as cool as Law Tech by any stretch of the imagination, man. Not as cool as all. Raffael, man, how you doing today?
I'm good. Definitely extremely blessed.
Awesome, man. I am excited. You reached out to me to talk about this next step. So you've been the coach at Law Tech for an extremely long time now. What are we at? 2 months? 2.5 months?
I feel like I think like 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
So you reached out to me. I want to, if it's okay with you, I want to kind of start there, and then we'll kind of get in our Wayback Machine and find out more about your career leading up to today. But we do want to celebrate you being the assistant coach at Law Tech. That's a big deal, man. And we're going to find out even more why it's a big deal here in a second. But you reached out earlier last month and said, hey, Mike, the podcast, the Gill Athletics Connections podcast, helped me through my volunteer year more than you know. Thank you. And mission accomplished. That mission being the position at Law Tech, man. So maybe give us kind of 5 seconds, 10 seconds. What about the podcast kind of helped you through a volunteer year that we're going to learn about here in a little bit?
Obviously, if anybody that's coached and has gone to a volunteer year, they know, it can be tough, play a lot on your mind, you're worrying, is this going to work out at the end of this? Am I going to get a job? Am I going to accept the job too soon? And then a better job came along, and there's so many different variables. So, whether it was just driving to Dallas, because we're headed to the airport, or driving somewhere else, it was always I could throw on a podcast, listen to a story. So, I think listening to Karen Davis over in Ohio State, that was a great story. Mouse was actually a great story that kind of helped me to accept the position. But there's always just something good, something about their story that inspired me. And you see that their struggle and that they got through it. So it really just kind of, well, if they went through this, and I know I can go through this over here. So it's been helpful.
You mentioned two great ones there, and if you're listening now and you haven't listened to Karen Dennis at the Ohio State University, and of course, Mouse Holloway over at University of Florida, please do so. Put it in your queue. I use Overcast for my podcast listening, so it lets me set up a queue of podcasts. But those two were really, I'm glad you mentioned, the impact that those two had on you, because really, their stories were quite unique, by the way. Both have roots in Ohio, with Mouse from being from Ohio and Karen from coaching there. But two radically different stories that had to overcome some adversity, a lot of adversity. I mean, when Karen Dennis tells me, hey, so I left UNLV, and I was like, oh, what and why? And she's like, yeah, I got fired. And I was like, I mean, the transparency and trust she has to have to tell that story. And I asked her later, why would you say? I mean, you could have easily just glossed over that and moved on to the Ohio State. You didn't have to tell that part of the story. And she was really, her thought pattern for telling people why, that she was fired and why was because she wanted to help people. She wanted people to see that, one day you might get fired. And that's not the end of the world. In fact, what a blessing for her as she goes to the Ohio State University and wins many, many titles, and is doing just a stand-up job over there. So love that, those two people specifically had a positive impact for you, man. Really, really appreciate that. So let's let's make it so that one day someone comes to me and says, I listened to the Raffael Craig episode and it really impacted me. Let's find out. Let's make that happen today. So Raffael, where does your story begin? Where does track begin for you as a sport, and kind of how did it morph into coaching?
It's funny because as a high school coach, I've always kind of told this story like about track saved my life, and I went to Wildwood High School for a year, my freshman year, and it wasn't until the end of that freshman year. Like I just happened to be walking by the track one day, and these kids are out jumping over a bar, and I'm looking at them from the other side of the fence, and I'm like, oh, so I asked, can I try? Now it's funny because I look back, and as a coach, I'm thinking like, if some kid asked me that, I'm like, no, I'm not getting sued if this kid gets injured. So so I'm glad he let me, because I go over there and whatever they were jumping, I jumped it, and then like 6 inches later, I'm still jumping, and they're all done, and then before I knew it, the guy gave me a uniform, said we got 2 more meets. Love for you to be on the team. So
now, Raffael, you're letting your bias show a little bit, because I'm assuming, I could be bad, and everybody else is it depends on what they're assuming. I think you're talking about high jump.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
But you could be talking about pole vault.
Oh gosh, no, that'd be impressive if you can just go pick up a pole.
Hey, I'm happy to report some people have done that. Now the opposite is normally the truth. It's like, yeah, they pick up a pole and they'll never do it again, So so you saw the kids high jumping, and you were kind of like, was it the attitude of like, I could beat them, or was it more of like, oh, that looks kind of fun and cool, I just want to kind of go try
definitely
it?
more like it looked fun. It looked, I was always athletic. We're always playing basketball, stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to try it, and then end up liking it. That I did the 2 meets. It went well, and then that next year I ended up transferring to Millville, New Jersey, and so that year, like I knew I was going to go on the team, and so that kind of led to it all.
Did you I want to say it's Donald Thomas, who was the kid that at the NAIA school did the same thing. He saw the kids high jumping on the college team and said, oh, I bet I could do that, and jumps, I don't know, I think he jumped, the rumor is, the lore is like 7 foot in high tops, and then he transfers to Auburn with the great Jerry Clayton, and now the guy's like an Olympian several times over. Do you remember that story? I want to say it's
I remember it. I can't.
Yeah.
I don't want to mess the name up though.
Yeah, I was like, someone hit me up on Twitter at Mike Cunningham and tell me, is it Donald Thomas? I feel like I know a Donald Thomas coach, and so I feel like I'm getting that mixed up in there. But was it like that situation when you went over and tried it out? Did you jump like, I mean, if you jump 6'6" off the street, that's impressive to me. Like, did you jump super high? Or
I jumped 5'8", then we stopped, and I finished that, then that next year I actually went, and like when I went to Millville, so I would say I always call it my first year, because it was actually a year of training. So I went 6'6" then as a sophomore.
Yeah.
And 6'10", then 7 as a senior. But it was always funny because most people don't know this, but I was the 7-foot high jumper, and I was the second best kid on my team.
Yeah. Well, hold on. You jumped 7 foot in high school, which, first of all, how many are doing that in a year? I mean, do 10 kids do 7 foot in high school a year?
Probably not. I know we had 2 on the same team. Yeah,
not many. And you were the second best.
Yep.
Holy cow.
So at the time, named Robert Jordan, we graduated together. We're still good friends today. And when as a sophomore, I went 6'6", he went 6'10". Then I went 6'10", he went 7'2". Then I go 7, he goes 7'4". Wow. So that was our like high school, but it worked out well in so many ways, because one, it taught me it's okay to be second. It taught me how to be a teammate. Because it's not so much about me getting first; it's about us getting first and second, or us getting 18 points. And the other thing too, it taught me to branch out, because I knew like I didn't mind taking second, because I knew I still needed to go be good at something. So it made me like curious about other events. And then all of a sudden I became like our best discus thrower, and then our best shot putter, our best hurdler. So,
wow.
So losing to him kind of helped me become the decathlete that I was going to eventually be.
Wow. Like, it's interesting. I can't, we said less than maybe 10 kids in high school jump 7-footer. We had one at our local high school here, Muhammad Seymour, who I think he jumped 7'2" during the indoor season. So it's a rare feat in high school for sure. But did you kind of grew up in that, right? You had 2 7-footers on the same team. Did you just think like, oh, this is normal? Like, in Texas, they probably have a high school that has 3 7-footer, or was it like,
Yeah.
did you guys know like, oh, we got something a little special here, 2 kids, 7
You
foot
know,
plus?
it wasn't until I went back to coaching at Millville that I'm coaching kids and I'm looking at kids around the state and then I'll start seeing like, every now and then you'll get a year where 6'6", you're meet a
Right.
champs or 6'8".
Mm-hmm.
And so that was like an adjustment, and then it kind of makes you appreciate like how rare that was.
Yeah.
So
You're like looking around like, where are all the 7-footers? I thought they just grew on trees like me and Robert.
right.
How many? So this is interesting. So your school record is 7'4",
4
but
3/4. Yeah.
your second place school record is like 7. Would you jump
7 feet.
2,
Yep.
7 feet? Yeah.
7.
How many high schools second place high jumper is over 7 feet, man? And it happened in the same year. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was definitely an interesting year. Our that year that class actually is getting inducted into our Hall of Fame in our town this upcoming year.
Congrats.
So,
That's awesome.
yeah.
Wow. That's a big deal, man. That's cool. So what were you thinking for college? And did you think like, and maybe you guys did, were you and Robert kind of like, hey man, we should continue this 7-foot streak. Let's go to the same school.
Yeah.
Or how was college decision making?
We thought about it, but we had a little bit of differences, and and back then, now that I'm on the college side of it, I understand more what it means, because the college might not be able to go after 2 high jumpers,
Sure.
or
Yeah, good point.
they might not even be recruiting a multi-eventer.
Good point.
So I ended up at University of Connecticut.
Yeah.
Robert started, he went to Barton for a while, and actually had a lot of success, went on to go 7'5" there.
Wow.
And then picked up triple jump, because that was one thing we didn't have in Jersey, which looking back, I'm like, wow, I wish I did, because as a coach, I tried it just to see what it felt like. And it was fun. I don't think my shins would have handled it back then, doing all those jump-ins though.
So what year was this roughly? What year did you graduate high school?
99.
99.
1999.
So he went to Barton, because I coached at Neosho County Community College for the 2001 season. So was he still there? Did he do 2 years?
He was there. Yeah, he did 2 years. And
Yeah.
I remember him saying Tyson Gay was on that.
I was about to
Was
say,
there when he was there.
Yeah, it's interesting that he tried triple jump there, only because the great Lance Brahman, now coaching for Adidas, was the head coach there, and he had Walter Davis, I think maybe Levan Sands. Like he had like 3 or 4, no kidding, 3 or 4 triple jumpers at like 55 foot. Like, I'm surprised he'd be like, yeah, Robert, just stick to high jumping, man. I got enough triple jumpers, man. That's amazing. So you go to UConn though. What a great school. We had Andrew Dubbs on, a great UConn alum, who last summer we had him on, who really worked hard on saving the UConn track program when we got all the alums together to fight hard. I'm assuming you were part of that as well.
Yeah, I was on those Zooms. Yep.
Good. So what was it like going to UConn, and where are you as you go to UConn? What are you thinking for a career? You gotta eventually get a job here. Were you thinking about coaching, or were you thinking about going into something else?
My students, as a teacher, my students always ask me, like, because they're looking like, well, why do you want to teach, or why do you want to coach? And I always tell them, like, believe it or not, like if you look at my yearbook and they ask you like what your career like goal is, I put down I want to be a math teacher and a high school coach or a track coach.
Really?
So, now, actually, I might have just put track coach at the time, because I don't think I knew what level I wanted to do. But,
so where did that come from? Did you have teacher or teachers that were really inspirational, or family members, teachers? Where did that, I mean, you kind of had a passion right off the get-go for teaching and coaching.
Yeah, I would say I had a lot of support in Millville. And one of the things was like, my guidance counselor, Mr. Rowe, was really like, he was one of those guys that remind you every day, stay humble. And I'm looking back, like he knew where I was headed before I knew where I was headed. So he was just kind of helping, he always had a little advice for you. My track coach, Coach Hoover, it was funny because I always call him a great storyteller. Like he's one of those guys you just sit around and listen, give you some words of wisdom. But he helped me see what, being a positive male figure is like, and like, the importance of it. And then I actually had a Spanish teacher who I didn't learn Spanish from, but she's now the godmother of all 5 of my kids. And we have a great relationship, and she's just done a lot. So between those people, they've just really helped me to help me point me in the right direction. So I would say I wasn't always the straight and narrow kid.
We won't put those on recording. We'll let those just die in the past. Shout out to those teachers, because a lot of times if you've listened to the podcast, you've heard a lot of coaches say that they didn't even realize until kind of late in their college career that you could even be a college coach like that. Like they knew, like, here is this coach coaching me, and that obviously was their profession, but it never kind of hit them until later, like, oh, wait a minute, I could do that and I would enjoy that. I love these influences you had kind of from the get-go, at least through high school, of like, the positive influence teachers and coaches can have on young people.
Yeah, no, it's huge. It's invaluable.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I love it. So you go to UConn. So are you studying, or you're education major?
So actually, no, I think actually when I got there in this, I would say we kind of have a plan for ourselves. And then, you always hear that joke about like, make God laugh, tell him your plan.
Yeah,
but
right.
Always like, it's always like to think God has a plan for us, and it's probably a straight line. We continue to take detours, and he continues to steer us back onto that.
He's like, get back over here. All right, now get back over here. What are you doing? Yeah.
Yeah. So when I got there, I think I changed majors like 4 or 5 times when I first got there.
Wow.
And, and be honest, I think in my mind, I was, college, probably the workload probably was a little bit surprising when I got there. The track part was good, and I ended up winning Big East like when I got there for in the pentathlon. But wow. I would say like it made me a better coach in terms of helping my kids to really know what to expect. But that would have been that was a little bit surprising. I'd probably say I didn't use my time as wisely as I could have. But again, it made me a better coach in the long run, because right. These are things I look out for. So I know I need to be, and now at this level, I know, just because you got to college for that athlete, like that's not the end goal. The end goal is to graduate. And some people get lost in, thinking like, I just want to earn that scholarship. And then you get there, ooh, I made it. Like, no, like that's the beginning. Now you got to work, until you get that piece of paper in your hand.
And obviously you had success as an athlete kind of right out the chute, right as your freshman year, and you go in as a multi, not just pigeonholed to just a high jumper. I imagine that had to help, learning the different events had to help maybe craft your idea of becoming a coach as well, right? Because you could do more events.
Yeah. And even early on, like too, like, like we're high jumping, we're doing this, and we had other kids. Like I think our third guy was a 6'6" guy. But I was always like, I found myself always being helpful, always trying to help somebody else learn like form, or do your trailing like this or stuff like that. So that's when I look back on it, I realized like I was already doing a lot of it at the high school level as an athlete, just trying to help the other kids that weren't like, necessarily at that same level. So, and then, you see them have success, and it kind of, makes you feel good.
I've heard them say, decathletes, multi-heptathletes have to be gym rats. You have to always be working on something, because it's, there's so many foreign events to you. You no matter how prepared you are going into college, there's events that you've never done or have done so little. It always reminds me of the stereotypical quarterback you hear about in college, always in the coach's office, watching film, breaking down film. Were you that kind of multi-athlete? Were you not necessarily the gym rat, the physical side of it, but were you always studying the different events as well?
Yeah, I can honestly say, like, I even now, like I consider myself a lifelong learner. Like I want to always be learning something new. Heck, I think I just finished a master's in coaching exercise science.
Oh, wow.
And at the time I only started because I was like kind of curious. I stumbled upon it. I realized like, hey, I got enough GI Bill left to use. Like why not? So, yeah. So no, yeah, I think just always trying to better yourself and, get the most out of your life. But I think sometimes when you sit back and realize like you have one life, you have one crack at this, like why waste it?
Right.
So, whatever that passion is of yours, go out there and pursue it.
So where did that passion take you? You end up graduating. Did you get what was your final, out of all the different majors you went through, what did you actually land on and get the certificate, the degree for?
All right. So again, we talked about those detours. So, well, first let's say, when I got to Connecticut, I was, I think it was like the first month in, I was doing the hurdle drill, felt something in my shin of crack, couldn't walk on it. I get there, they x-ray it, and it turns out I had 13 stress fractures on my jump leg. So
Whoa.
funny,
Thank
funny
goodness you didn't
story.
have triple jump. You're right.
I
Yeah.
know.
Oh.
And just I guess a lesson learned, because it turns out when we were in high school, I didn't know any better. So whenever I have shin splints, I would ice it and numb it, but I was doing that before I jumped. So then I would jump on it, I wouldn't feel it, but deep down I was making it worse. And so yeah, they'll be like,
Wow.
by the summer, like I'd go through like 2 weeks of it just throbbing while it's healing. But
Mm.
a lot of those fractures were like they cracked and healed, and we finally got it good enough that it finally cracked to the point where I wasn't walking on it. So I was actually on crutches for about 6 to 8 weeks. And then sorry, get my charger.
If you're watching us on YouTube, we just lost him. He became a letter R.
Oh God.
Did the phone cut out or what happened?
Can you hear me or no?
Yeah, I can hear you. Absolutely. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, this is the technical difficulties you go through sometimes, folks. I don't cut this out. You're going to be hearing this on the podcast. There we go. He's back.
Yeah.
All right.
So now
you got a broke leg.
Yeah. So the stress fracture, I'm on crutches. We're doing like pool workouts and stuff like that. And then actually healed up in time just to compete that indoor season. And that's what I said, that was probably the main part about winning that Big East pentathlon that year, because I just came off that injury. But then did spring season, and then by the end of spring, ended up cracking it again. So yeah, so after about 2 years, like it was just injuries can get to you. And again, I keep pointing back to like all these things that end up making me a better coach later, because now if I get a kid that's injured, like I'm definitely checking up on them often,
Right.
trying to make sure to keep their spirits up and, let them know they're going to get through this. But so by sophomore year, I finally, I actually stopped like running track.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess for better or worse, I'm where I'm at today, but I would say that it was another detour.
Mm-hmm.
My grades probably weren't as good as they could have been, because, when you stop track, then it's like, well, now there's all these other, something has to take its place.
Right.
And in this case, so I would say distractions, end up taking its place. And that was the point where I was like, okay, am I just going to sit here and just keep doing this, or what? Am I going to do something different? So I actually joined the Air Force. So I stopped early. I joined the Air Force. I did the aircraft mechanic thing for a while. And it was funny because part of my reasoning at the time when I made that change was like, you know what? I'm going to go see the world. I'm going to join the Air Force. And I think in aircraft mechanic, well, I'm definitely going to see the world.
Absolutely.
So I got stationed in Jersey. So
is that the only place? Because now I come from an Air Force family, and we moved around a lot. You were right there in New Jersey.
Yeah, well, because I only ended up doing one tour. So and I was on the KC-10, which was the plane that does the refueling for the fighter jets in the air.
Okay.
Well, it's only stationed in 2 places, and it's California or Jersey. And when you go through training, everybody gets a choice, a dream choice. And between the two, I ended up just go ahead and I did the tech school in California. Then I went on and just did the station in Jersey.
Right.
More people, but I thought I would still see the world through through like traveling and just tours and stuff. So
how many years did you do enlisted?
So I actually ended up doing 3.5. And the reason I did 3.5 was we're about 3 years in, and the whole Iraq war thing happened. The Operation Freedom in 2001, and Air Force was overstaffed by at least 10,000 or so people, and the Army was understaffed. So the government came out with this initiative that if you were in the Air Force, you had the choice of, you can take a $10,000 sign-on bonus and convert over to their Army. You can also convert over to one of the reserves, or you can just get out. So I was like, so I've been taking some of those CLEP tests and stuff, and I was taking the classes to finish my degree while I was in the Air Force. And and I'm looking at my credits, and I'm looking at the amount of tests I can take, and I was like, you know what, I can get done. I was like, I'll just get out. So between I took like 36 classes that 36 credits worth. And then I took 30 credits worth of CLEP tests. And for those that don't know what a CLEP or Dante's test is, that's where you basically study, you take the test, and if you pass it, you get the credit.
Ah, got it.
So I switched over to Thomas Edison State College in New Jersey, and they were an online school, and they would accept up to 30 credits worth of those tests. And I was a really good test taker as far as like I could study, cram it, and then just go take the test. So
Right.
30, got 30 credits. And then obviously the biggest part about it was if you're in the military, it's free. Go take as many of those tests as you want. So yeah, so I graduated, and this is where I knew like God, when he wants to put you back on your path, because the day I got out of the Air Force, I got out like 6 a.m. I drove 2 hours back to South Jersey, and I started teaching at 8 a.m. So
wow, what a
the
vacation.
jobs just lined up. I know, right?
2 whole hours.
But when you're leaving something, you definitely, you want to make sure that you got something going. Because at that point now, I already had my first 2 kids, and I was married, and so we got bills to pay.
Yeah, right. That's amazing. I mean, we've had a lot of coaches on the podcast now. We're over 100 coaches from all divisions, all walks of life. I don't think anybody has stopped college, went enlisted into the Air Force, and came back, and spoiler alert, we're talking to the assistant coach at La Tech. I mean, that is quite the detour, my friend. I don't think if we'd have written up 100 different ways to become a college coach, this would have been in the top 100.
Yeah, but what though, it was a great experience too. One thing the military is going to teach you is chain of command, discipline, structure. So, again, all these things, God keeps putting in my path to just, help me become who I was, going to become.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. Well, first of all, thank you for your service, because that is amazing. I did the junior service. So I was a Air Force ROTC scholarship winner, and so I did a year of college in the ROTC under Air Force, and quickly realized, yeah, I'm not good enough to be here. I'm gonna mess this country up. So I stopped before I got actually in. So you're welcome, by the way, because I would have just screwed it all up for you. But that's awesome, man. That's so cool. So where do you go? You start teaching. So how did you go from Air Force enlistment to teaching? You got your degree. Was obviously that degree was, I shouldn't say obviously, it had to be in some kind of education for you to go into teaching.
Yeah, so they had that's what's called the alternate route for teachers. When you're kind of low staff, and so I did that. I applied, I got it. So I ended up going special education.
Got it.
And then once I got hired, then I was seeking a master's degree in special education while I was teaching. And then you would go away like 1 weekend a month, and you had to do a class, and everything else was either online or you would do like every Wednesday for a year at night. So so that was basically like how I got my foot in the door, and then I was able to eventually get my certifications, and and then I immediately start coaching. I volunteered my first season there until a spot became available. But so, and I was back at my alma mater, so that was
sure,
that was obviously a great experience.
Yeah. Was your coach still there?
Oh yeah,
that's awesome.
Yep, he was still there, and then eventually what happened was I ended up getting the assistant coaching position as the women's track coach. And then 3 years later, I ended up becoming the head coach for the women. And I always say, I really like, in my mind, I was going to be the men's coach one day, take over Coach Hoover. And, he would always say like, yeah, you come back, I probably got a couple more years in me. And then, 5 years later, he's still there, but like, I'm the women's coach, but so I don't, it doesn't matter. But it was always funny because, you never know when you want to leave. And, I would say like, as I'm, slowly getting up there in age, like I can see, I'm not going to know when I want to leave. And, if you love it, why stop it?
What did, I wish we could ask him directly. What did did you say Hoover or Groover? I want to make sure I'm saying this.
No, Hoover.
Hoover. What did Coach Hoover think when you came back and now you're a volunteer coach and eventually you become the girls' head coach? He knew you as this skinny freshman walking by who was like, hey man, can I try that high jump stuff? I mean, what a transformation that he saw in you from then until now. You showing up and you went through the Air Force. I mean, that's a heck of a transformation he saw you through.
Yeah, no, definitely. And obviously, you're just, you're this immature kid, and as you're slowly growing up and coming back. So I imagine, though, when you see, someone at that point in their stage, they probably seen that transformation many times over with a lot of their kids. So, but I imagine it probably put a smile on his face, just knowing, that he had a lot to do with,
Mhm.
with that development.
And let's not diminish what you did here, my friend. I certainly agree and hope that Coach Hoover saw that type of development, positive development in kids. But unfortunately, we're dealing with the odds. Not every kid is going to become an Air Force airman, airplane mechanic, and then get a degree and become a teacher. What you did is special. Let's not. I just don't want to diminish that. Like, oh yeah, Coach Hoover saw this all the time. No, no, no. This is special. This journey that you went through, and certainly what I'm interested in learning, and even if you don't know the actual cases, how many kids saw your journey and were inspired by it. I was like, wait a minute, that guy, like he was just a skinny guy who just started high jumping. He became really good. He went to college, had some setbacks there, didn't let that stop him, went on into the Air Force and served our country and then got his degree. I mean, that's heck of a story, my friend. And we're just in chapter 1 or 2 so far. This is amazing. This is awesome.
Yeah, no, it's definitely been a thrill.
So talk to me about coaching high school at your alma mater. That is also special. I have a very soft spot in my heart for people who coach at their alma mater. What was that like? Was it all you hoped it would be, or were there some challenges that maybe you didn't see?
No, I loved it. I mean, I would say I definitely enjoyed teaching. I absolutely love coaching. Um, the more time went on, like it just became, everything starts to move a little smoother, get easier. You start, learning the ropes. But from the coaching side of it, when I first got there, they had just came off from the women's side, they were like, we have conference meets to start, and so or dual meets, and I know a lot of states don't do that as much anymore. But so we have a conference of like 8 or so schools, and then you go against each of them once, and then you also have your state meets and things, and like your regular part of the season. But so they just came off an 0-8 season, and I get there, and first thing in my mind I thought was like, okay, like who's the athlete? And then once I found that person, then I looked and I saw a couple other girls on the team, and my goal was like, okay, these three need to train together, and then it became those five, and then those eight, and I just kind of started with like just that first couple, and just kind of it built from there, and then it was like I knew, looking back at my past, like some things that I liked and things that I didn't like, throughout my career and my time at both, at the high school and the college level. So I knew one of the biggest things is I needed to make it fun. I needed to get kids at this age to really just love it, because if they love it, they're gonna give their all, and also well, that's what we tried to do, So for I would do things like I got a tip from like the sororities and fraternities where they would do like a big brother or big brother little brother thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I started that at the track. So so on the girls team, there was you had a big sister, little sister. And if the big sisters were obviously our seniors and our juniors and the veterans, and we paired them, and we'd have a day where they'd get together and they find out who each other's are, like they're blindfolded, turn around, like, oh, and I would pair them similar, like either similarities or things I thought they could learn from the big. And and it's funny how that worked, because I have a plan, but it ends up becoming so much more than what even I would thought, because there's still some of them that big sister listeners that still or talk to each other today, and they're like 35 years old, and they're still like, that's my big or that's my little, or
So
checking up on each other.
that's interesting. In the scope of trying to bring value as much as possible to listeners, we very purposefully stay away from the X's and O's of how to coach on this podcast, mainly because there are so many other amazing podcasts that talk about it and do a great job. And it would be unjust, authentic for me. I haven't coached in now 15, 16 years. So, when people say that I have forgotten more about coaching than well, it's true for me, only because I have forgotten everything. It's been so long, it's like, right. It's not like riding a bike. You got to ride a bike to learn to keep riding the bike. I have not coached in 15 years. So I don't know any of that stuff. Go listen to, you know, Sprinters Compendium, Altus. Oh gosh, who else has great coaching type? Kibwe Johnson will do someone as 40th podcast. Amazing podcast to talk about how to coach the X's and O's. Here, we just had a pretty good lesson on how to coach that wasn't X's and O's. So you built this, I don't know, would it be fair to say this mentoring program inside your high school program?
Yeah. So because what ends up happening is that, you know, like they start to look out for each other. You know, the older kids know what I expect as a coach, and you know, they help the younger kids adapt to it quicker. So I found myself not having to do so much of that early on, like trying to get a freshman to understand this and it, because I had somebody else also in their ear kind of telling them the same thing and knowing like, nah, you know, dude, Coach Craig is not gonna play with that. Like, you know, make sure you're in class, make sure you're doing this. So, you know, and then it just gave them also, it helped them feel comfortable in that setting as like so much faster, because now they have somebody that's right away looking out for them. And, you know, if you go in there, it doesn't have to be a sport. If you go into something and you're alone and everybody else already knows each other, like that could be an uncomfortable, you know, feeling. So, you know, it just kind of helped break the ice.
And, you know, representation matters, right? So I imagine that a 17, 18-year-old high school athlete talking to a 13 to 14-year-old high school athlete about, hey, Coach Craig, don't play with this. Hey, here's how you do it. Your warm up. Here's what's expected of you. That means more than the, pardon my way of saying this, Raffael, but the old man, the coach saying it, right? Like coming from someone who's in your same peer set would have more value, I would imagine.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, I mean, and they got close, because I'll tell you, there was a time a teacher came to me and she was like, a couple of my girls were in the same math class, and like every time she would go to try to correct the one girl, the other girls would defend that girl. And and I'm kind of laughing because I'm like, I always wanted them to be that close, but then, you know, I have to kind of let them know, like, all right, but you gotta let the teacher do their jobs. Like, you know?
Yeah. Hey, let's dial it back just one notch there, please. Yeah. So you're doing this on the girl side, the men's coach, Coach Hoover, who's your former coach. How did that go? Did he pick up and start doing it as well? Or was there any tension there? Because, you know,
No,
definitely
nothing like
boys
that.
and girls, but you're still the same high school.
Yeah, nothing like that. You know, and everybody has their own way. Coach Hoover, you know, he's like, you know, that's great for girls. And, you know, and just something like that particular thing, he just, you know, chose like, nah, guys are going to do this. And that's fine. Like I said, everybody has their own thing that they have to find that, you know, works for them. And, you know, for me, that just worked. And then, you know, starting a youth club, you know, that was another thing I felt like was important. You know, if you want to have a good high school team, you know, you need a feeder program. You know, our town was big on like soccer. You know, soccer had a feeder program. You start off at like, I feel like you start off at age 2. And but
so before we get to the club real quick, and this question is not a reflection on Coach Hoover, but if someone's out there listening right now and they coach boys, I want to make sure that they hear this from you one way or the other, whatever your answer is going to be. Having your experience with this big sis, little sis mentorship program, do you feel like it would translate to a boys team? And again, this is not a reflection on Coach Hoover. This is just bringing value to people who coach boys on the high school level.
Absolutely. I mean, I got the idea from a fraternity, you know, and so I would say it actually, you know, it's all on how you make it. So now it becomes more of a brotherhood, you know, of guys looking out for each other. And, you know, that could be more important, especially considering, you know, the town and neighborhood, you know, the outside circumstances when they go home, the environment, you know. So, you know, that, I mean, yeah, that could be very beneficial.
Okay, that's good. I just wanted to make sure if someone's listening and, yeah, maybe they have a similar attitude of like, oh yeah, that works for girls, but not boys. But I thought the same thing, you know, my fraternity, when I was in college, I still remember my big brother, you know,
Yeah.
that was my guy, you know, absolutely helped me out. So I wondered if you had thought about that on the boys side. Okay. So you start, you're not busy enough teaching and coaching on the high school level. You also decided to start your own track club. So what in the world are you thinking? You're just not, and you're married and got kids. So what were you thinking here? How'd this go into play?
I mean, honestly, I love track, and I love, like, you know, just what it does, you know, and how you can, you know, in my mind, take someone like me who I felt like I was heading nowhere. And then now I have all this direction, and, you know, I've always wanted to give it back. help other people see the same thing. So, on the other side also, I want to be successful with what I do. So from a coaching standpoint, well, if I start a youth club, um, this is a long-term goal, but eventually they're going to get to high school, and these kids are already going to know my drills and know what to expect, and know, have some, discipline. And it probably couldn't have worked out any better, because when I started it, my oldest daughter was the youngest age group. She was 4. And when I left to come to Texas Tech, my oldest daughter just became a freshman in high school, and we have won our first state title.
Oh,
So,
wow. Proof is in the pudding, I guess. Holy cow.
yeah.
So was it just you doing the track club, or did you have assistant coaches? And how many kids did you end up having? Because I've seen some of these clubs, man, and God bless you people who do summer track clubs, because I can't do it. You guys are amazing. How did the structure go, and how big did you get?
So basically, there's 2 parts to the club, and actually, when I first got to Millville, oh, did I lose you again?
Yeah, I can still hear you though. You're good.
I got it. Oh, okay, now my charger is on, but it's still saying low power mode.
YouTube does not want to see Raphael's face, I guess. I don't know.
All right, let's see. But so yeah, when I first started coaching, I actually volunteered at Quicksilver Track Club in Vineland, which is our neighboring town.
Yeah.
And then that's where I got to at least see, like, okay, how the club thing works, how to register kids. So I did that for a year. And then that's when I decided to start my own club. And it ended up evolving into 2 parts. So I had a part that was about 6 to 8 weeks long in the summer. And because again, like our sports town, we were big baseball, big softball, big soccer. So I knew I wasn't gonna get a lot of kids that were gonna be those like all year round track kids. So I made something where I just wanted to introduce them to it. They come out at age 3, 4, and then all the way up to 18. So that group ended up becoming about 100 after like 3 years. So it's about 100 kids.
Wow.
But then the group that traveled, which ended up being more of the high schoolers and some of the middle schoolers, would be that was a smaller group, and that was the ones that was like, they were, well, if they were high school, they're with me already. And then once the summer came, they got ready to do like the AAU stuff. And then they would travel, and we went to, we did a lot. We did AAU and USATF, but to be honest, we usually did whichever one was closest because from a budget standpoint, but they were able to see just like what the experience I got, like I was able to give them that experience of going to see the world. So, they got to go as far as New Orleans, California, Houston. So it was, great experience, and then we always try to do something, make sure they see something. Cause I'll be honest, when we were going to all those national meets in high school, Coach Hoover always made sure that we saw, the arch in St. Louis, or, we went up to the Sears Tower in Chicago. So they always try to add something, to it. So, that's one of the things I really love about track, and the things that we're able to do, for our athletes.
I think that's vital. Like, I love when I hear stories like that. We had Robbie Strickland from down in Florida, who's has a club for AAU, and a lot of the same sentiments of, helping the kids see past where they are now. And not that, hometown is bad by any stretch of the imaginations, but to help bring as much of a world perspective into each young kid. It's good to see the arch in New Orleans and see other people's cultures and things like that. I love that experience you gave those kids.
Yeah. And so after that, so one of the things I did with club wise, my assistant coaches, like Coach Kalababa, they would always come, they would help out in the summer. And I wasn't trying to, like, I know it's a lot, I know it's demanding, and so I never want to put the pressure on everybody, like to feel like, oh, we need, like, I know you're with them fall, winter, spring, but I need your summer too. Like, so what I ended up doing was, with the youth club, I ended up having my high school, like, seniors and juniors, and the ones that really knew track or really were involved, they became the coaches for the little kids. So if they were really great with kids, and like, we had one girl, Victoria Thaler, she was just great with little kids. And so she would take like the 4 or 5-year-olds, and they would go through drills, and they would teach them, all the little A skips, B skips, and they'd always try to end it with some sort of game, just because the attention span of a 4-year-old is not as as long as it
Hey,
you probably would like. But
I'm 40. Well, actually, by the time you're listening to this, I'm 45, and I still have a short attention span. I still need games, so I get it absolutely. What That's amazing. So you did this for, you mentioned your daughter's age. So I'm guessing 10 years.
No, I say '07 to 20. So well, I've been coaching 15 years. So
Okay.
actually, I started right away. So so basically 15 years between it all.
Wow. And you mentioned Quicksilver Track Club, which, there's in my world, a famous track club down in Georgia called Quicksilver. And I hope we're not starting any beef between the New Jersey Quicksilvers and the Georgia Quicksilvers. I know Hassan Stamps listens to this, and he was a Quicksilver guy. I don't want any beef. Did you have a cool club name?
Oh, now you know what? And here's I literally I had a strategy for everything, and in my
I bet.
mind,
I know
I
that
knew,
so far. I've learned that. Yes.
well, I wanted to make sure if we're going to fundraise and we're from Millville, then I needed to make sure that the people in Millville were going to embrace us. So I kept it simple. We're the Millville Track Club.
Oh man, you kind of,
So,
yeah.
you
I
know,
mean, I get the strategy, but
but I never, fundraising was never hard. We got plenty of donations. They all pretty much came from Millville, but we had a great support system. And even towards the end, like, you might not notice, but Mike Trout's from Millville.
okay.
And so I was so we have an organization called the Thunderbolt Club, which I was on the board for. And one of the things that we ended up doing was the Mike Trout golf tournament every year. And what that does is they the money we raise for that, we actually give a $500 scholarship for one male and one female in every sport in high school, the graduating senior.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so they've added on each year, and it's gone up. Like the more we make, the more we keep raising it up, and trying to include other people. And recently, before COVID, they just started doing other things, like allowing a certain amount of money to go towards each sport if they need a special request, or like in my case, if I have kids that are going to nationals and we're trying to fundraise, well, now they have a set in their bylaws that they can give us X amount. And so that's been great for us. And and Mike being generous enough to let us have a golf tournament where he comes down and plays too. He actually
Now
he loves it, like every October.
I'm terrible. I don't like baseball. Mike Trout, the baseball player, right? Is that? Yeah,
Yes.
okay. Yeah. As soon as you said it, I was like, I think he's a baseball player, but I am the worst. I don't watch baseball. I played fifth grade one year and had a 0 batting average and realized baseball wasn't going to be for me. So I stopped playing. I sold all my baseball cards. I was out, man. But I thought I knew that name big enough that he was a baseball player. So you're going through the club program, you're coaching, you're doing it successfully. You're having kids, go on and go to college, not only just for athletics, but for academics, going on and doing themselves better. Is there a yearning for coaching college? Is there a yearning for whatever you might define as the next step? How did, we know you mentioned it already. We go to Texas Tech after this. So what was the impetus for that?
So I would say, like, during that time, I probably always had that desire to want to coach, and to coach at the college level. And I think it was just something where it's like almost like maybe to prove to myself, I could do it. So I've had the success at the high school level, and then I had I was having success at the club level. We had quite a few like national champs at that youth age, um and I think it was just more that question, and then it kind of crept in slowly, and then it kind of kept growing, and like like, well, can you do it? And then COVID happens, and my oldest daughter, she had just came off her freshman year, and she had won the national that New Balance national champ in the heptathlon.
Oh,
So now here we're at COVID, and we're about to not have a season, and we're not training, and I'm training in our front yard on our concrete sidewalks, and I'm looking around, and I'm like, we were already thinking about, like, okay, well, maybe after she graduates college, maybe there's a gap in between kids where maybe I go ahead and take that chance. Because at the time I was looking like, well, since I was in the military, well, if I in Jersey, it looked like if I did 20 years, I could like defer retirement, and then at least I locked something in. So then maybe go. But but yeah, so then, like I said, COVID happened, and it was just like, okay, maybe we should, consider doing this now. And that coaches collab group on Facebook,
absolutely.
by
Shout out
Marissa
Marissa
Chu.
Chu. Yeah, baby.
Yeah, so
Absolutely.
she had that going, and like, I'll tell you what, COVID was a surprise. COVID's adjustment. Like, you get used to a routine, and all of a sudden you're just home all day. So yeah, when I saw that coaches collab, I jumped on those. I'm on Zooms like every day, and had me a little schedule, and I'm talking to people and getting, I think Harry Merrill was on there once, and we're getting like great insight from him. And then one day we're on the jumps one, and Coach Thomas is on there, and he's talking about something, and so I messaged him, and we start talking like track and talking multi events, and I'm talking about breeze training, and a lot of our training was real similar already. And for me, that was good because, okay, well, I'm doing this at the high school level, so it's validation that what I'm doing is right.
Right.
Now, of course, it didn't hurt that I as a high school coach, I had already did like 2 of the level 2s with Boo.
Oh yeah, hold on, El. So tell us about that. Which ones did you go to, and what did you do?
All right, so I guess technically I did 3. So the first one I did was strength and conditioning.
Okay.
Which definitely a shout out to Millville, because one of the things like our athletic director Dave Lagamba was great about was, if I wanted to educate myself, like he was going to help me find the money. So
we need more of that. If you're an administrator and you're listening right now, I just saw a really impactful tweet over this weekend about, we have all this money for uniforms and things like that. And I say that not being too, there ain't that much money out there. It's not like we're making things out of gold here, but that a lot of schools miss exactly what you're talking about, that professional development side, that they don't put any budget towards helping their coaches continue to get better, whether it's strength and conditioning, track, football coach, whatever, going to clinics, camps, etc. So Millville made this like a priority.
Yeah. So
awesome.
So we got the strength and conditioning. Then the following summer, I went back and did sprints, hurdles, jumps, because that year the combined events they weren't having it that year because they were revamping the curriculum.
Right.
So I did sprints, hurdles, jumps, and that was with Keba.
Yeah.
So that was, and then the following year I got to go back and do the combined events with Boo.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of like it just sparked my interest. Like I love like what we learned. I'm one of those guys that definitely, like, if it works and I know it should work, I put it in right away. Like I'm not set in my ways, and that was one of the things I always tell my athletes too. Like, I want you to challenge me. Like I want you to leave here with an understanding on like what you should do, what you should expect to do. Like our relationship should begin with like I'm coaching you, and this is like the program, but by your senior year, like we should be able to have a conversation about your goals and your program and things that might work best for you. So doing Boos, that was great, and that was also kind of a compliment to where coming off there and kind of just restructuring some things and what I was doing, really like took our team off and helped allowed us to also become the state title and
wow,
or state champs and things like that. But
so you're talking with Coach Thomas through the Coaches Collab.
Oh yeah. Yep. So we're talking about that. And then I asked him, I'm like, if you want to get into the college world, like what do you gotta do? And his honesty was like, man, he's like, you might not want to hear, but the best thing I can tell you, man, is you gotta do that volunteer year. And then he explained, and he was like, and if you go do a volunteer year, he was like, you gotta come up to a Power 5 school. And his point was, well, if I go volunteer somewhere, and not there's anything wrong with volunteering, but depending on your goal, if your goal is to get to a Division I school, then go volunteer at a Division I school, because that's what they're going to look and say, okay, well, he's learned here and he's done this. So, so at the time he was just, he wasn't pitching it for me to come to Texas Tech or anything. He was, obviously I'm in Jersey, so he's looking around like, okay, well, you have some Power 5 schools in your area, and in my mind, I'm thinking like, go hard or go home. So I'm like, well, Texas Tech, you guys just won the national title. You've got, you got great facilities. This is COVID. I'm not going to train anywhere. So, we talked about it, and he offered me the job, and we made it happen. But it was very stressful. The more I realized it was about to really happen, because now I'm talking. I'm 15 years into teaching. You got pensions. You got family, wife and kids. I am actually, remarried. So I also have my oldest 3 have their mom lives in Jersey. So I also had to talk to her about it and, get her permission. And, so those are just a lot of variables. And, so it was stressful. I kept praying on it. Definitely had some people in my life that, Coach Laws from Pleasantville, and a lot of just very God-fearing people and coaches that offer me support. I think I even reached out to Lamont over at what's this? is it Johnson B. Smith?
Johnson C. Smith. Yeah.
Johnson C. Smith. Yeah, reached out to him. Gene Galloway, gave me the D3 perspective,
Mhm.
and just a lot of coaches were just supportive and just kind of offer me some, the guidance and if I'm going to do this and things like that. Um, so that's where your podcast started to come in. So I'm listening to you talk to Mouse, and he's talking about a story with and something that his father told him. And this was probably the most stressful part of that I was going through. Like I got like knots in my stomach, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So he said his dad told him, if you're going to pray about it, don't worry, and if you're going to worry about it, don't pray. And I mean,
Wow.
like that, I felt like I needed to hear that at that moment, because like I immediately, like, I became at peace, and I knew like, okay, like I've already prayed about this, that was it. So from that point on, we went on and did it. Um, and obviously, getting there, like, there's still a lot, there's an adjustment to college coaching, that I would say if you're ever considering, doing that, which is kind of why that volunteer year is important, because, it isn't just the recruiting, it's the paperwork.
Mhm.
I would say it's also just adjusting to that grind, you know, if you're at the high school level, you are always thinking about track and you're always planning stuff and, but, you know, well, at the college level, well, now you might have 4 practices. You might, like, I think the
Right.
first time I was there, like, I think after college, I was like, man, I've been standing a while. Like, but, but by the end of the year, you quickly adjust. And if it's something you love to do, you're going to be at it every day. And the other thing I think I really appreciated with, Coach Kitley and Coach Robinson, Coach Thomas, Coach Slagle, I mean, I can name them all, even Lana, our director of ops, just being able to like ask them questions. Like, the thing I really liked about college is everybody I just named are just the most helpful people, that you can get. Like, I can ask them about anything and like they're going to give me their best answer. And even now I can call them up, you know. So I can't, that part is the part that I think about that you get to do as a coach, just go helping people. And when I first got there, like I remember watching Coach Thomas just trying to help people get in dorms, or help this overseas kid get an apartment. And, that really stuck with me, because it really told me like this is what I want to do, because I love the helping. And you're not coming in every day with exactly like a set schedule. I don't know what I'm going to do exactly, other than my the training, and I got to get this done and that done. But I don't know how I'm going to help somebody today, but I know I'm going to help somebody.
First of all, before I say what I was going to say, I love that last line you just said right there. I just know I'm going to help someone today. What a great attitude. Anybody out there, no matter what you do, whether you're a college coach right now, a high school coach, maybe you're an athlete. I know we've had some athletes that listen. If you open up your eyes each morning with that attitude right there, how am I going to help someone today? This world would be a lot better. Like, we would have so much less pain and heartache out there. So I love that attitude right there, Raphael. What I wanted to say, taking a step back here, and I have all kinds of respect for James Thomas. I love that guy. Easily one of the best coaches in the NCAA level in this country, who now is at the University of Georgia with another great person, Carol Smith Gilbert. Love her. But with all respect for James Thomas, I do want to put this disclaimer out there for everybody who's listening right now. This is not the only way to go from a high school club coaching situation to the college coaching. This is a way, and I'm so thankful that this way has worked for our guest today, but I don't want to get pigeonholed to where we think that this is the only way. There are many, many examples. Go back and listen to previous podcasts. You will hear several different examples on how to make it to the next level, if that's what if your heart desires, even the Division I level. But I just don't want people thinking like this is the only way to get it done. But this is a way. So let's learn more about this way. So, Raphael, where are you in your personal life as you're deciding to go big or go home? Love that. Of course, that's you. I mean, this whole story today has been about go big or go home. Where are you personally as you're deciding to go from New Jersey to Lubbock, Texas? Great university. And Lubbock is amazing, but there ain't nothing around it. But Lubbock is Lubbock, and Texas Tech is Texas Tech. Married, kids, are you deciding to bring them all out? Are you going to do a year? You're going to sacrifice time with your family. You're going to be separated from them. Where are you in that aspect of this decision?
Well, I can tell you, and I definitely, I can appreciate like everybody's choice and decision because some people do have to. You might have to leave your family for a year or something, but that was not going to be an option for me. Like I always said, like I train all my kids. They all basically run track, and then at the early age they all do all the other sports too. But I knew that we were either going to all do this or we all were going to stay where we're at. And that was just something I felt strongly about, and they agreed to. Like I don't even think they could imagine if I went away for a year. But no, it had so many actual benefits in the long run. My oldest two girls, they're about 15 months apart, and they've always been great with each other. But now I feel like they're like darn near twins. Like they're so much closer, and like our family as a whole is so much closer because you come out to a new state, and now it's just us. You start to you get to know each other even more.
Right.
So
Especially
so
during
that's been
COVID, even it's like impacted. Yeah.
exactly.
So what was,
Yes.
and you were married and still like, you survived. Are you still married?
Yes. Oh no. Honestly, definitely owe a huge like this would not be possible without my wife, Shayla. And she's been extremely supportive. She pushed me to do this more so than I was going because she knew it was a dream of mine. She knew, she knew I'd be good at it, and she didn't want me to like she every time I had a doubt, she was the one helping me to turn that doubt around because we kind of live like we need to try to those doubts are the devil trying to talk us out of something that God had planned for us. So, now we really try to take that mindset. And anytime I get that, you get that feeling, it's like, no, we got to go for it. So, no, she's been great and supportive and, really just held it down, even now, like, being able to be the type of person that can make sure, like, if I got to go on a recruiting trip that I know everything's fine and we're here, even though we're in another new state.
Is she from New Jersey originally as
Yes.
well? What were her thoughts of like, oh my goodness, we're going to West Texas? Was it
You know,
excitement? Was it reservation?
I mean, the good thing about it for us is, for us, we just looked at it as Texas because,
Hmm.
we're like I've been to Houston, I've been to Dallas and those areas, but you know, what it's not as bad as people realize. Like, in fact, I'm like, we really like Lubbock.
Hmm.
Like when you get now, granted, when you leave Lubbock, it takes you a couple hours to get to the next place,
A
but the
couple of
town of
hours. Yes.
but the town of Lubbock itself is actually really great. Like it's always say like when the East Coast, our road system stuff like that are just it's a mess. But that's because it was like trial and error. Well, by the time Lubbock came about, you know they had a lot of good thinking. So I'm like, every road has like 3 or 4 lanes. All your
Right.
like it's very simple. North, south, east, west. You got a loop going around it, which makes it
Hmm.
so where as big as it is, you could be anywhere in Lubbock in 10 minutes.
Did you ever? So I've gone to West Texas a couple of times. In fact, when I coached junior college, the junior college national cross country meet was in Levelland, so like just outside of Lubbock. Did you ever drive through a little town called? Do you remember a town called Garden City, Texas? I mean, there's so many little towns I know, but I don't
I
know if you.
don't. I know. I've driven
Oh,
through like a happy Texas, but
yeah.
I'm not Garden City.
I was driving through Garden City, Texas, and it is literally the stereotypical, like, I'm not sure they had a stoplight or a stop sign. It was in the morning, early in the morning, and there was a gas station. They did have a gas station, and it advertised like they had burritos or whatnot, breakfast. And so I was like, oh, I was so starving. So I pull over and I get this burrito from the gas station. Now, in New Jersey and Illinois, when we do that, it's the plastic wrapped burrito or whatever, No, no, this was homemade tortillas, freshly cooked sausage. And it was literally to this day, like here I am. I mean, that had to be 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I still remember this stinking breakfast burrito I had in Garden City, Texas, man. It was amazing. And I don't know if I'll ever get back, man. I'm just so sad. So if you're ever in West Texas and you go through Garden City, stop by the one gas station. It's amazing food. It was amazing. Okay, so you get down to Lubbock. You don't get to go to Garden City and have a breakfast burrito, but you're learning a ton. And you're learning a ton you mentioned some of these guys and gals, from some amazing people. James Thomas is by far and away one of the most amazing coaches around. Calvin Robinson, that dude's amazing. Wes Kitley, unbelievable. Cliff, right? The throws coach, Cliff.
Yeah, Cliff. Yep, Cliff Falcons.
Has done, yeah, Falcons has done, has coached some unbelievable people. Slagle. I mean, there's just, that's a staff. I mean, there's no question of why they won a national title, right? I mean, you put good coaches together and they can recruit and coach, game over, right? So how are you mentally taking on this role as a volunteer coach? Are you trying to soak in as much knowledge? Are you just trying to leverage their network for a job? What's your mentality going into this position?
Well, we had a lot of talk. We had a good talk about this. And one of the things that Coach Thomas did was he always tried to treat the volunteer coaching job like an internship. Like he wants to make sure you walk out, like you're not holding a stopwatch and a clipboard. And it was great for me too, because like probably like about a month in, like, just having that trust in me and knowing that I already had a lot of coaching experience, like he was starting to able to, give me more responsibility as we went on. And, I think leading up to conference, one kid was coming off an injury, and then I just had him, to work with to get him ready for conference. And so those were nice days. So he had a pretty good system in place on how to, basically how to help a coach, understand the ropes and, get to where they need to get to. And then obviously I think the adjustment period too is, if you're an athlete, now you got a volunteer coach, and, so there has to be that, but which is good because, it helps you learn how to deal with people. And, and by the end of the year, I have much love and respect for like, every athlete on that team. And, and I imagine that they're, affectionate towards me, and, the relationship we've had that, we were able to establish in a short amount of time. So, it's been, that was a great, just great overall experience. And, the things you learn just probably say just an invaluable again, but one of the things I would say for me coming from high school and kind of answering that question was when you get up there and you see, oh, they have the same problems that the high schoolers have,
Yeah.
well, that like, oh, that kid points his toes,
Oh, and we lost him. I think his battery died. So I'm going to give it just a couple minutes and see if he pops back up here. And if he doesn't, I'll just chop all this out of the podcast. You'll never hear it. You'll never know that Raffael dropped out on us here. It's amazing what he's talking about, this volunteer year and taking his family to Lubbock, Texas, and the sacrifice that he and his family and his children made for this goal of coaching college track and field. So it's great to hear this internship style of volunteer coaching that James Thomas put together, and really helped Raffael understand the differences and even the similarities of coaching high school. So Raffael, you were getting ready to explain some of the similarities you saw between high school and college. I think it's a good lesson to go on here for a little bit. So what were, as you moved from, many, many years of coaching high school and club, and you go to not just college coaching, but you go to, they're coming off a national championship. You have some really well-educated coaches at Texas Tech as well. Let's do both sides of that. Let's start with the similarities, and then what were the major differences? What were the similarities that you found between coaching high school and coaching Big 12 level? You started mentioning some of the cues and corrections were some more common, toes pointed, things like that. What were other some of the similarities?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of similarities. One, when you get to know them, they're really, it's just more of a continuation. Like they're just, 1 year after their senior year of high school. Like, so, they're still not, they're not all of a sudden a pro where they haven't necessarily figured everything out. There's still a huge adjustment for them, even just adapting to college life or the training or the load and, responsibility, or probably a big one where people fall short on is like getting to college and realizing, recovery is part of your training day. Don't just assume practice is 2 to 4, 2 to 5, and then that's it. Like, we expect you to, go see the trainer or go before practice to treatment So, those are a lot of things that I noticed. But similarly, the biggest thing is like, they're kids, and then some of them are, they're more transitioning towards adulthood.
Mm.
Conversations can be a little different. And I think at that point, they're starting to be able to take their own stances on certain topics. And, this obviously was a great year as far as, not great as far as what happened, but as far as being able to talk about political things or things like that they might want to express themselves. They've been able to, as they, figure out who they want to be and what they believe in and what they feel strongly about.
Yeah, I thought when I transitioned from coaching high school in Chicago to coaching college in Alabama, I thought, oh man, it's so much easier to be a college coach. Like you get to pick the kids that are on your team. I was so naive, Raphael. But I was like, oh, you get to pick the kids on your team and they'll be the best of the best. And you like, a lot of the things that you have to drill into the high school kids, that'll already be done. And we're starting at a higher level. And then, I get there and it's like, oh, you point your toes too. Oh, you don't know what a warm up is. Oh, you don't know what cool down, things like that. So a lot of similarities, just maybe they're, instead of working in that 14 to 18 age group, you're working in that 18 to 22-year-old age group, right? And you're dealing with, in high school, you're dealing with a team that has a lot of similarities in the sense they probably grew up in that area. They know the area, they know the same people, they grew up in the same maybe morals and structures and ideals. And then you go to college and you got kids from around the country, if not around the world, that are all trying to learn each other and their styles and their differences, what they find important, what they don't find important. So I like that perspective you give there. It's like, it's not a whole different, it's not like, two sides of a coin. It's the same coin, same athletes,
Yeah,
just a little
yeah.
bit older. Yeah. So what were some of the differences then? You kind of alluded a little bit earlier about, maybe sometimes having 4 practices in a day and the grind of paperwork. No, I've yet to have a coach come on and tell me they love all the paperwork part of coaching college yet. No one has. So what were some of the differences that you kind of noticed immediately and had to kind of figure out, if you will?
Yeah. So well, one of the differences I found was that one, I would say that there's more, like on a high school team, you're probably going to have a handful of kids that like your top kids or your college bound kids. And then you have kids that are, they do it, they're good, but this track might not continue at college, but, it's taught them a lot of valuable lessons for, that they could take into the real world. Well, at the college level, you're going to have a lot more kids, a little bit more motivated, a lot more kids already like, a little bit more like structure. So I found like it was easier to talk to them and have conversations with them about their training. Where at the high school level, like my goal is the same. I want them by the end of their experience to be able to understand, what the cycle is and understand, why this week has less volume than those 3 weeks before and things like that. But it's just a little bit easier to talk with a college athlete about it because they already know a lot of that stuff going in, and we're just like we're getting to work and we can just you could talk and know that they know that.
Mm-hmm. What
But
other differences did you notice that you were like, oh man, I did not expect? Was there anything like unexpected, like, oh man, I didn't know we had to do this as a college coach?
yeah, well, I would say on the paperwork side, no, because I think being a teacher and I don't know if it's everywhere, but I know for being a teacher in New Jersey, like there comes with a lot of paperwork. So in my mind, it's just part of the job, and you got to do it. And but I would say, yeah, like the multiple practices, which is understandable because like why would high jump practice and pole vault practice going at the same time if you're that coach? So so that makes sense, and we're able to just get adjust to it, like as a coach, understand like, well, now I get to just focus on track all day, so I get to structure my day how I want.
Mm-hmm.
But and then obviously the little things, like you have to be flexible with your practice time because this semester these kids, your pole vaulters might be available from 1 to 3, but next semester you might have a kid that he has a class at that time that he has to take because it's his senior year. So if you have multiple groups, then you have to just be able to be flexible and adjust.
So we've had a few high school coaches on the podcast that have gone on to coach college. And one of the biggest, I'm gonna say myth, I almost said a myth is that high school coaches, you've never recruited. So that's why you can't coach college. Maybe you know how to coach sprinters and jumpers. That's fine. But you know what? We have to recruit on the college level. What, how did that aspect, and I'm not even sure much as a volunteer coach, what you could have done or did do, but how was that aspect of, I would think a major difference, right, between high school and college, or maybe not?
That was one of the things, and I definitely heard that too about, you got to basically, the volunteer years, like proving you can recruit. And I probably came across it at a good time. So again, that's all according to God's plan. But coming here with COVID, they changed the rules because when the first month, I got to reach out to a kid through texting, let them know like, hey, you give me a call, and then I can talk to them. But then they took that rule away because of COVID. So now I was basically able to just recruit like everybody else, which was beneficial and allowed me to like just be able to be more active right away. But now you know what you're recruiting at the high school level too. You want a team, you gotta, you want to fill a team, you gotta do it. You're not just recruiting them, you gotta get the parents to buy in to your system. The more buy-in you have, the more successful they're gonna be. And if you don't do those things, then it's you're kind of you can be setting yourself up for failure in the long run. But no, at the high school level, if you like, I remember when I first got in, like everything I did was recruiting. Like I'm like, oh, this kid did this sport. Like, hey, come, let's try this. And you know, I was able to tone it down later, which was kind of why I started the youth club, so I wouldn't have to necessarily be looked at as like I was taking this person from this sport, or I got this other coach mad at me. But you know, in my mind, I was like, I have to tell the athlete what I think was best. And I had a pair of twins that were softball players, and they were at the time they were JV softball players, and they came off a winter track, and the first by the end of the year, like they're running like 101s in the 400, and they're sophomores, and indoor flat track. I'm like, well, that's pretty good. So we kind of came up with a talk and goal, and like, well, if you hit this time for this, I think you might want to consider spring. So long story short, the softball coach wasn't happy. Years later, we worked it out, and we worked out a good system, of which Casey came down to like, if I feel like they can earn a scholarship in track, then we'll have a conversation about it. And after that, other than that, I won't steal anybody else. But so but those girls actually went on to get full rides at East Carolina University, and the one went on to work towards her doctorates in mathematics, and the other's a psych degree, and they're both doing
Wow.
extremely well. And every time I see their dad, who's actually a cop in Millville, he always like, I always say like I'm his favorite guy because I saved him the price of 2 tuitions.
Right, right. You're a hero, man. Yeah, twins, man. You gotta, whoo, everything just doubles.
Right.
Yeah, I love that aspect of the recruiting side. Several high school coaches we've had here on the podcast, like the ones that are successful, and everybody on this podcast is successful, they talk about recruiting. Like they talk about whether it's from other athletes or the hallway recruiting is how some of them will talk about it. It's like, hey man, I'll see a kid in the hallway and be like, that kid's tall. They should come out and try track. Maybe it will work out, maybe it won't, but golly, let's come out and give it a try instead of just walking the hallways and things like that. So, and now in college, like I'm gonna say you got it a little bit easier because everybody you recruit in college already does track. So you're already,
Yeah.
in high school, you got to get softball players to run and band members and such. College, you at least get on the playing field of like, oh, okay, well, everybody runs track. I got that down. Now I just got to tell you why my university and my coaching might be better than someone else's. So I just want to dispel that myth about high school coaches not being able to coach on the college level. There's been so many success stories. So it definitely is plausible.
Well, the other thing I add to that was when I first started recruiting here, like, like as I find my niche and like what I'm doing, like it was like first I was like, do I like this? But I actually ended up loving the recruiting part of it because it was just I got to talk to people, I got to
Mm.
connect with them, I got to share stories. If I reach out to a club coach, like I remember reaching out to one coach and like, the 10-minute conversation turned into 2 hours because we just had so much that we can relate to because as a club coach, you're the coach, sometimes you're the mom or dad away from home, you're the counselor, like a club coach does it all, like you and people, I'll say it's interesting at the end of the day what I'll like the most, which level, but I definitely have an appreciation for all of them because and we all know the club coach, you're also the fundraiser, you're doing you might be in the kitchen baking for those those bake sales. So you do a lot.
So you go through your volunteer year at Texas Tech, and the goal of a volunteer coach is not to continue being a volunteer coach, right? You want that proverbial raise, you want a paycheck. So
Right.
how did it go coming through the year as a volunteer coach, but also maybe having an eye towards a full-time position somewhere?
Yeah, I mean, so you're always looking at the for jobs and as they come open, and and most of them will tell you, James and them, they'll say, when we get after regionals and stuff, that's when you're gonna really start seeing things open up, and it did, and especially with a 2-year break where most people's jobs were frozen, so
Right.
a lot of us kind of kept thinking like, oh well, stuff's really going to open, and clearly it has, as as James in Georgia now, so there's definitely been a lot of shifting, but no, it was, it can be stressful, I tell you that, because like I said, you worry, you hope that you know you're going to get the job that you want, and you hope that oh gosh, what if I get offered a job, do I take that job right away, do I hold off and hope that a better job comes along, and then it was great to be able to talk to James and Calvin and Coach Kitley, and be able to get their insight and stuff, so um obviously for me, I would say I try to pray on everything, and I definitely pray on it, and I really want to end up somewhere where I felt like you know felt like I belonged, felt like it had a great atmosphere, it had the potential to do great things, and so when I called wind of Louisiana Tech, you know talked to Coach Gary, and he invited me out to come check it out, and I'm not a feelings person. I always say, like, when I pray on it, God's gonna give me that feeling like this is right. Like, so, we came here, and I felt like I just knew it. This is it. This is where we're supposed to be. I was kind of fortunate. My daughter happened to be with me because we were in Dallas doing a heptathlon. So it made more sense for us to just drive 4 more hours and then to go all the way back and drop her off. So she got to see it too. And, we both just really enjoyed the area. We liked the setting. So, it was a great fit.
In today's world, not many coaches stay at a institution for a decade plus, and you're coming from one place at Texas Tech. Wes Kitley has been there, I don't know, not forever, because I can still remember his Abilene Christian roots. Did he ever tell you the story of how he went from Abilene Christian to Texas Tech?
Oh yeah.
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 I got to have him on the
Oh,
show one day to tell that story. It's amazing. It's awesome. Talking about the path, it's just awesome. But you go from Texas Tech, where Wes Kitley has been there for a long time, a lot of stability, a lot of growth, right? You talked about the new facilities and, bringing the program up and winning a national title, which is not easy to do, folks. And then you go to La Tech, and you have Gary Stanley, another amazing coach who has been at that institution for a long time, lots of conference champions, lots of All-Americans, etc. Do you look for that kind of situation? Like, was that attractive to you in the sense of, like, Coach Stanley at La Tech, of like, oh, here's someone, like, I know he's not going to be leaving next year, which is potentially going to leave me out of a job. There was some stability there, or was that just kind of happenstance in regards to the university job itself?
no, I say in both situations. Like, I really prayed for, like, even the volunteer year. Like, I prayed like that I land somewhere where I'm going to learn, from positive people, from people that like really care about what they do, and the kids that they work with. So so when I look out with James and Wes and stuff, that worked out great. And then I was like, well, let's pray for this again. So get landed with Coach Stanley. Been here 39 years. And even now being here and seeing some of his athletes, even just over these past couple of weeks, come back to visit. He has one of his athletes get inducted into a Hall of Fame here, very soon, and just being able to see that and see that history, that's I appreciate it, and it's inspiring, because obviously I'm midway jump in careers, but in my mind, like 20 years from now, I'm hoping that I'm in a similar situation where I planted roots somewhere and I really helped leave my mark on an institution and a whole lot of athletes.
Yeah, you strike me as a root person. You talked about Millville and being an alum from that program and being there for, over a decade. A guy like me, I was a no roots person. So I coached for 10 years and was at 5 different institutions and would have probably done 10 more years in 10 more institutions. Now I'm a root person, being here in the Champaign area for our factory for the last 15 years. That seems important to you, this the root theory that I'm given here. So like, do you, as you have with your family, which is obviously very, very important to you, is that what you're striving for, is some kind of stability? Or do you think, you know what, when we have you back on the podcast in 10 years, are we going to be talking about the last 10 schools that you've been to?
No, I think you're definitely not going to be talking about the last 10 schools. I'm not a fan of moving. I can tell you, I definitely want to be somewhere where, like, I feel like I belong. I feel like I'm part of a team and I'm helping to accomplish that school's goals. So, and that's why it was so important, because, I'm thinking like, I've heard different advice, and some people told me like, well, yeah, do your volunteer year, then you're going to do a year or so here, and then you're going to transfer it to this one. And then by the third one, you might be where you want to be. And I'm like, no. So that's why I was like, no. So I knew if I come out, if I come to a Texas Tech, I could probably avoid some of that bouncing around, because I can, build up and learn enough that I can just get to where I, want to be. So, I definitely feel like we accomplished that. And, I couldn't have asked for it to happen, any other way.
Yeah, you certainly, and I'm going to say landed, not like, you had a path, but you certainly have ended up at a great school, a great program. I can't say enough good things about Gary Stanley. Again, stability and doing it the right way. Definitely not lucked out, because, you prepared for it, but man, what a great place. Really
Yeah,
good
no,
place.
it really.
So what, with the knowledge of you've been there, we can count days that you've been at La Tech, and it's summer, so we haven't had any practices and things like that. But with all that in mind, what's got you excited as you look at your roster for the upcoming year? Maybe you guys have already started looking at your schedule. What's maybe got you excited for this upcoming year at Louisiana Tech?
Really just the opportunity to work with the athletes, get to meet the staff. We had a COVID year at Texas Tech, so we didn't really get to have any recruits on visit. So,
Right.
even just, so being here in this, just being here in these 2 weeks, I've been able to have a couple athletes come visit, start to really get settled in. And I'm just excited about the year as a whole. We got some good recruits coming in, and we're looking at a few more to it. And, hopefully if everything goes right, then, we're going to, we're gonna be looking really strong in this upcoming year, right? Kind of hit the gates running.
Well, now when you're on the podcast, everybody, like, they pay attention now. So we're going to be looking at results and indoor season and outdoor season. We're like, all right, let's see what, and honestly, I'm just going to blame James Thomas if things don't go well. I'll be like, well, James, he was your volunteer. Like, you're supposed to impart all your knowledge into him. So
You're right.
but man, I just want to, just give you a shout out, Raphael. I first of all appreciate your kind words in regards to the podcast and how it, positively affected you as you go through your volunteer year. Volunteers are amazing, right? You're giving up your own time for no monetary return, and it's one thing to do that as a single person in this world, and that's not easy either. But to do it with a family, children, a wife, must be an amazingly patient and loving wife. Shout out to her first and foremost. But the stress levels continue to rise, right? And with COVID, there's a lot of uncertainty. So I just, can't imagine the stress levels that you and your family went through. And I'm just so happy that, like, the positive, the equal sign of the equation was you got a full-time job. You hit your goal. I want to coach Division I college track and field, and here we are as the assistant coach at Louisiana Tech University. Man, just shout out to you, your perseverance, your goal setting, your leadership. It's a big lesson for all of us to hear that journey.
Thank you, and I appreciate it. Like I said, it's been a blessing, and it's been, it has ups and downs, but at the end of the day, I've always been a positive mindset type person, and I'm going to find that good in no matter what the situation is. So, just I'm just trying to enjoy this life, and when I close my eyes, like, I want to know that I didn't have any regrets.
Man, I can't see any happening. That's for sure, man. That's you talk a lot about the path, and I love that you use that analogy. So with those paths, even things that we might have made mistakes of in the past, well, that's part of our path. Our path would not have been the same if we didn't make those mistakes. So absolutely no regrets, man. It's all moving forward. And what's awesome about your story is you have so many more chapters to write. You are in the infancy of your journey in college coaching track and field. So I'm just so excited to see what the future lies for you, my friend. It's going to be amazing. I just know it.
Yeah, actually, we forgot. I didn't even mention because we were doing before COVID. I was also a masters athlete, so I definitely want to give a shout out to all those masters athletes out there. Because when I went, in 19, I was 39, and we went out to the what's that indoor facility in North Carolina?
The
Like,
Virginia Beach one? Oh,
no,
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 no.
no, the other one.
JDL, North Carolina,
Yeah,
JDL.
yeah, went to JDL. Yeah, went there and saw I saw the two guys running. The one was like 96, the other was like 98 at the time, and they're sprinting. And I'm like, you know what? If they can get out there and do it, like I have no excuses. So, I'm definitely proud to say, like at 39, I was still high jumping 6'9". So,
Wow, really? Dude, I am convinced track people are just the most bored people in the world. So, you start a club coach, masters athlete, you got kids, man. That alone is busy enough. Being a husband, that's busy. That takes time. I just love your boredom. It's like, all right, let me go jump 6'9" as a 39-year-old.
yeah,
That's
we
amazing.
noticed the other day. My daughter, she literally just asked me this because she was like, "Well, do you She asked, did I miss? Do I feel like I missed out on any like time with them because of track?"
Oh,
And I told her, I was like,
which daughters? How old?
my oldest, Brianna, the one that Brianna,
Hey,
yeah. So
that's a smart question. You know what? That's not, did you miss me? That is a thinking question. She's smart. Okay. So that's a big
yeah,
question. How did you answer?
so I told her, I was like, honestly, and it's funny because from my mind, I was like, believe it or not, I don't think I missed out on it. I just think it came differently for us. So every track practice we're at, and
Wow.
and I would definitely, I knew I wanted to be the type of father that like they can talk to me. It wasn't going to be like I'm stern and that's it because I said so. So if we're at track, guys don't realize it. Like if I was your typical dad, like, I come home, I'm tired from work, we might not talk. We might just watch a show. I was like, but instead we're at practice, you're telling me your day, you're talking to me about this boy or who do you like now or stuff like that. So I'm like, so we get that more, and obviously,
Mhm.
we're practicing every day. So you get that time to express and have with me. And then, I started naming all the places we went. And I was like, so by the time I was like, and I thought
Right.
to her, I was like, well, how many states have you been to? And by the
Hmm.
time she was done, I think it was like 21 states she'd been to because of track. And
Wow.
then we start thinking about, and every time she named a state, she had a memory with it. And I'm like, so I just kind of point out, like, it's not exactly like it may not be the traditional, but I think we checked off all the boxes.
That is a really good lesson, my friend. That goes back to when I said that this is not the only way. Your story is not the only way to coach Division One. There is no one way to be a parent, right? There are some bad ways, but the way you said there, you did it differently. But what's important? Investing in your children, spending time with them, giving them the morals and guidelines to have them go make their own decisions. You did it, my friend. That is awesome. Wow. And obviously did it well enough that
Yep. So no.
she's asking smart questions, man. That's amazing, man.
Yeah. No. No. It was cool.
I thought we were going to sit here and talk about you as a great college track or as a great track coach. You're an amazing father, my friend. I just want to bless you on that because that is your greatest legacy. We're here to talk about track coaching, but honestly, there are many, many more roles that are more important than coaching track and field. And parenthood, fatherhood, motherhood is one of the top. If it's not number one, it's number two because husband and wife is another important role to have there as well. So shout out to you. Shout out. Tell me your wife's name again. Did you say
All right,
Sheila?
Sheila. Yep,
Yeah,
Sheila.
man. Shout out to you guys. You
Yeah.
guys are doing it the right way. You're doing it your own unique way. And that is going to create your own unique, positive children who are going to go out and your legacy is going to continue because they're going to go out and affect other young people in positive manners, no matter what professions they go into, man. So shout out to you guys. You guys did it your own way and you're doing it awesome.
No, thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, man,
And thank you for having me on.
yeah, I was about to say, I'm appreciative of you, man. I say this every week, and it's true. The most important, most valuable thing that you can give me is your time. And, we've been at it for, we're getting close to 2 hours, my man. Had a few technical difficulties, but that don't stop us. Wait, this ain't a traditional podcast. That don't stop us. We keep moving forward. We keep heading towards our goal. And I'm just so thankful that, you'd have some time for us today and give us your journey and the transparency of your journey. I really do appreciate, the humbleness of like, yeah, I went and became a volunteer coach. You know what? That's you're not supposed to do that. I'm doing air quotes, right? But you went and did that, and then it's paying off fruit for you and your family as you now go into full-time employment on the college level, which was the goal.
Yep.
So thankful for you, man. And so thankful for you guys listening today. We started off talking about this and ended a little bit here too, that Raffael talked about the podcast and some of the people specifically mentioning Mouse and Karen Dennis. And, when we started this, there were so many thoughts and goals that we had in mind. And this is exactly one of those goals. We named it Connections. You've heard me before. We named it Connections on purpose. It was to connect coaches from around the world and see a lot of commonalities and a lot of uniquenesses. And so, our goal today with talking with Mr. Raffael Craig here was that his journey is unique, and someone out there right now, you're listening and you are starting to understand how you can put things together. If this guy can do it, you can do it. And I mean that in all of the positive ways out there. Now, to expand on that, we have to get more people to listen to this, right? This guy's story matters. Your story matters. So if you would give me one piece of your time and share this, either this episode, or maybe like Raffael here, you got a favorite one, whether it was Mouse or Karen or Dwayne Ross or Harry Mayer. I mean, we've got the who's who here on this podcast. Share your favorite episode on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Morse code, whatever you're using out there nowadays. I still like the good old email and text message. Shoot that URL to someone that you think might receive value. And really, it's selfish for me. I want more listeners, of course, but it gives value. And that's what, at the end of the day, and that's what you heard in Coach Craig's story today, is about giving value to others. So thank you for being here today. Can't wait to do it again next week. We're gonna have another awesome coach, and we'll just keep this journey going, man. 50,000 downloads, and the goal remains the same: uplift and honor track coaches from around the world. Thanks for being here today.